Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, mgrahamsews. This video tutorial is for this cute little bag and it's called the Manhattan Bag by Emmaline Bags. Now before I discuss the features of the bag, there's just a few things I need to go over. First, this tutorial was filmed in collaboration with So Hungry Hippie. This is for the Hippie Bag Maker's Kit box, which is box 11, and this is the pattern that you are going to receive with that subscription box. Now, if you're not part of the subscription, that's okay. You can still sew along making the miss size with me, but that is the size that we are making for the subscription. Now, another thing to mention is the strap size. I did change the strap size because it fits nicely with this size of bag, and it is a 3/4 inch finished strap. Now you may be wondering, how do we get the width that we need to cut? Well, you take the 3/4 inch and you multiply that by 4, and that will give you the width that you need to cut your strap. And again, you will just use the hardware that matches the size as well. So my strap is 3/4 inch. Now, the fabrics here that I used are not the fabrics you are going to be getting in your kit if you are watching this because you're making that Hippie Bag Maker's box pattern. These are not the fabrics that you're receiving. You will receive something totally different. These are just fabrics that I had, that I used, that were in my stash. So again, not the fabrics you're getting. The other thing to mention is this is filmed like a sew along, no parts sped up, no parts cut out. You see me sew the whole thing in real time. If you get bored, you can definitely fast forward. You can even pause, you can even rewind. You can watch this however you see fit in order to complete your bag. Another note to mention is that I don't show any rulers, I show no pattern pieces, I give no measurements, and that's for the protection of the designer. So you will need to have your pattern either printed beside you, opened on another device. You just need to have it so that you can follow along and know what the measurements are that are given in the pattern. Now again, there are two sizes to this, the Miss, which is what we are making today, but there's also the Mama size, and you can follow along, but then there's some parts of the Mama bag that are not in the Miss bag, so you will need to follow those instructions as you go along. They are not recorded. So with the Miss bag, as you can see, it's this cute little bag. It has this flap, which when you open it up, there is a zipper pocket, so it's a nice little pocket, and my phone does fit inside. I did show you in the video. You also have this front slip pocket here, and then we have inside a very roomy bag with another slip pocket, and it's all kept closed with your flap. Very nice bag, perfect for an outing or a trip, something that you just want to have maybe just the essentials with you. You could really dress this up. You could make it very casual. You can do some embroidery on the front, whatever you want. It's a really fun and quick bag to make. I really like it. I like the design. I like the style. Very nice bag. So again, this is the Manhattan bag in the Miss size that we are going to be sewing. And again, this is a collaboration with So Hungry Hippie for the Hippie Bag Maker's Kit box number 11. So let's get started making our bag. So the very first thing you'll want to do, and what I feel is the most important thing, is to read through the entire pattern. It's important because it familiarizes you with the pattern, but also because oftentimes designers will give information regarding different materials and different interfacings. So for example, depending on the material you are using, you may need to cut your interfacing a little bit differently, or you may need to omit it altogether. So it's important to read through and make these notes before you begin cutting out your pattern pieces, because you don't want to waste any materials or any interfacings by cutting them out if you don't need them or cutting them the wrong size. So once you have that all read through, you can begin cutting out your pattern pieces. And I already have mine all cut out here. As you can see, mine are cut and interfaced as per the instructions. And the other thing I've gone ahead and done, because I've read through the entire pattern first, is I was able to make some markings on my pattern pieces for where, for example, like this one, where a slip pocket will need to go, but also on pattern pieces like my flap, for where my magnetic snap will go, and also the markings that are on the pattern piece that you need to make for lining things up. So you'll definitely want to go ahead and do that before you begin. It just makes it a lot easier so you're not stopping later trying to find your pattern piece and then getting all the markings made. I just find that it makes it go a lot faster. The other thing I've done is I always put all my hardware and zippers in a Ziploc bag. It keeps them all together so I don't lose them, and I know where they are when we go to use them. And I have my zipper here, my zipper pull, and all my hardware needed for this bag. So once you have everything cut, you're ready to get started on making your bag. So I'm just going to put this off to the side, and the first thing we're going to start with is our slip pocket. So we are making the miss size. So you will have two pocket pieces that look like this. If I can get them separated, they'll look like this. And what you're going to do is you're going to place one pocket piece so it is right sides up, and you're going to place another pocket piece so it is right sides down, so they're pretty sides touching, and you're going to pin the fabric together along the edges. So pin it all the way around. And then what we are going to do is we're going to sew around this pocket piece, but leaving an opening here for turning this right sides out. And what I like to do when I'm sewing my pockets and I have to leave an opening is I like to start off the end of the fabric, stitch to where the seam allowance is, and then go across. And what that does is that helps turning this pocket out later. And I'll show you when I'm done what it looks like. Oops, my microphone's falling off. I'll show you what it looks like so you can get a better idea. I just find it helps turn the pocket a lot better, and it just looks a lot cleaner, and it's just a lot easier when we go to repress the pocket. Now I just need to see what my seam allowances are because I forgot that already. There we go. All right, so we're going to sew this with the seam allowance given in the pattern all the way around, just like I said, leaving that opening, and use your favorite stitch length for stitching this together. And I always backstitch at corners as well. I just find that it adds a bit of strength in the corners for when we're turning it right sides out later. It does put a lot of stress on those corners. That's just something I like to do. You don't need to do that. I'm just going to trim all my threads, and then I'll show you how it looks. So that's what I mean. You can see with my red stitching where I've come down and I've stitched around, and this just helps with the opening later. And I know it's not perfectly centered, that's okay, but it just helps with turning it right sides out later so that you get a nicer, crisper edge there where you need to turn it under. Now I'm just trimming the bulk at the corners. And then I'll take this to my iron and I'll press it once I get it all turned right sides out. I'll use my turning tool to turn it out. Now don't trim this area here in this little section. Leave that the exact length it is. You need that for turning it. Use your turning tool to poke out those corners gently. You don't want to push too hard and break through and cause a hole. If you do, you can just turn it back wrong sides out and just re-stitch back through that hole and stitch it closed again. I also like to run my turning tool along my seam. I just find it helps push that out, those seams. And see how that naturally wants to turn because of how we stitched it. It naturally wants to turn under, so you already see how it looks. So now I'm going to take this to my iron and I'm going to give it a press and just give it a nice press. You can use some steam if you want. I have a little water bottle that sometimes I will use to spritz things to help get it a nice crisp press. So I'll do that and it'll be nice and crisply pressed. And when we get back, we will top stitch it and then we will attach it to the lining of our bag. So I've given it a nice press. This is how it looks. And this is the bottom edge here where the opening is. So that's the bottom edge. That's what I use as the bottom edge. So now we're going to top stitch across this top edge here, and you're going to do 2 rows of stitching. Now change your stitch length to the length you like to use for top stitching. And top stitch your 2 rows of stitching. And then we will cut our threads after. And as I always say, we don't want peekaboo threads, so it's important to trim those threads away. And don't forget to return your stitch length back to the length you used for stitching your bag. That's how it looks when it's stitched. So you can see I have 2 rows. You might not be able to really see it there. You might see it better there. I have 2 rows of stitching. So now we need to take this slip pocket piece and we need to attach it to the lining of our bag here. So this is my lining. So what you need to do is you need to center it, but you also need to place it at the measurement given in the pattern from the top down. And I've already made that mark. And depending on the size of bag you're using, you'll want to note what measurement you're using from the top of the bag down. So you're measuring from the top here down. You can see my line. So now we're going to fold this in half so we get a center crease and press it with your finger. And that just gives you that center crease so you know where to place this. And I'm going to fold my slip pocket in half as well, so I give a center crease on the pocket. So now that I have the 2 center creases, I can line them up, the center of the lining with the center of the slip pocket, and the top of the slip pocket will line up with that mark that I made from the top down. So centered, and the top of the slip pocket is with that line that I made. I have it pinned in place. So again, where the top of my pocket is here, that's where that line is, that measurement that I made from the top down. That's where my pocket finishes, and it's centered on the panel. So now we're going to sew around the entire pocket all the way around, leaving the top open. So sew down one side, across the bottom, and up the other side. And back stitch at start and stop. That's a lot of stress in that area, so make sure you backstitch really well there, just to help with the stress. Now, if you're worried about getting angled stitches, so that means that when you get to a corner, your stitch goes on an angle, what I like to do is leave my needle down and my presser foot down, change my stitch length to 0, take 1 stitch, return my stitch length back to the length I used for stitching, turn or pivot, and then stitch across to the other side. And when I get to the other corner, I'm going to repeat that. So needle is down, presser foot still down, stitch length to 0, 1 stitch, return my stitch length, and then I can pivot. And anywhere I need to take a corner, I like to do that. It just helps secure that corner in place and you don't get angled stitches. So now I'm going to trim my threads. I'm not so concerned about the threads on the back here. And I do need to get this wiped off, the chalk. There we go. I usually have a piece of fabric, I don't know where it is, that I use for dusting things off. So there it is, there's your pocket. We've created your slip pocket. Now what we need to do is create our darts. Now if you haven't already, you'll want to make the marks for your darts, and I'm just going to trace over it so you can see them because they are a bit light. So you'll want to use your pattern piece to create your darts, or to trace them and draw them out. Okay. So there's my darts on both sides of my bag. And for the dart, what you're going to do is take your pattern piece, your lining piece, and you're going to fold it at that dart so that the lining is going right sides together, and you want to line up the sides of the dart, these lines on the side, with each other. So just take a look. Line them up. You can even use a pin. This is another trick. If you push the pin through and it goes through from one side of the dart to the other, you know you have it accurate. And your corner here, up at the top where that top of the triangle is, should also line up. So you've got your dart all lined up. Use some pins to hold it in place. And we'll repeat that for the other side. So again, fold your fabric so it goes right sides together. Line up the lines of the darts, the side lines. You can use a pin here. And mine's off just a little bit, so I'm just going to shift it. There we go. And I'm going to make sure that the top of the triangle folds as well, right at that corner. Use some clips to hold everything in place. And I also like to clip past the dart as well to help hold it in place. So past the dart, so the dart starts here. You can see where my line is. I put a clip past it and passed it down here away from the corner. Now we're going to stitch directly on those marked lines. And I'm just trying to get everything lined up again. So we're going to stitch directly on those lines. And I do back stitch at start and stop. And if you're finding that it shifts on you when you're stitching it, that's okay. Mine did there, it shifted a little, even though I lined it up. So stitching directly on that line. Trim your threads. And that's how it'll look when you've stitched on the side, on the line. Now we're going to trim the dart away. Just the dart, just that little triangle. And I'm using pinking shears for this. Now what we need to do is press your dart seam allowances to the center like this. So you'll press it to the center. And then when we sew the darts on this lining, we'll press them so they go out. So what we're going to do is sew the darts on this lining piece. So same thing, line up those lines on the dart. Shouldn't have put all my clips away. So lining up those lines on your dart, and we're going to do this when we get to the exterior as well. It's going to be the exact same thing for our exterior. Again, don't forget to backstitch. So we'll take this to our iron and we will press one of the lining panel's darts towards the center and one going out. And what that'll do is that'll help nest the darts when we go to sew the two lining panels together so that there's not so much bulk. So again, press one towards the center and one towards the outer edges. So I'm going to go to my iron, I'm going to give that a press, and then I'll come back and we will continue on. So now that those seams at the darts are pressed, one again, as you can see, to the sides, and this one goes towards the center, we're going to pin our linings together. So lining up the center marks at the bottom, and mine are a little bit hard to see, so I'm going to make it a little bit darker. And you also need to line up the dart seams. So what you're going to do is take the seams where the darts are and line those up so that they nest together. And that's why we had pressed one way and one the other. So if one's going left and one's going right, they're going like that. So they're nesting. And then we'll pin the rest of the way. We'll pin at the top corner here. And then you'll keep pinning the rest of the way. But it's very important to make sure that those darts line up all nicely. Continue pinning. And then what we're going to do is we're going to sew this together using the seam allowance given in the pattern, but you need to leave an opening at the bottom for turning. And we can do the same thing we did on this by sewing down and then getting to where our seam allowance is and then going across to help it for when it turns after. So leave that opening, and you want to do it where the straight edge is. And again, make sure your stitch length is at the length you like to use for stitching your bag. And then go around the curve. Now a little tip for curves, if you're nervous with them, what you can do is keep your needle down, lift your presser foot up, pivot your fabric a little bit, put your needle down, take one stitch, again needle down, presser foot up, pivot your fabric that little bit, presser foot down, take another stitch, and do that all the way around that curve. And what that does is it helps you control that curve better so that you get a nice clean curve when you're stitching. So I'm going to back stitch here. Now we're going to come to the other side and we're going to do the same thing. Back stitch here. I'll show you how it looks when I'm done. And I'm following the curve of the panel. Now what we need to do is trim our seam allowances. Our threads, sorry, not our seam allowances. So it looks like that. So I've trimmed our threads. So you see how again I stitch down and then across, down and across, and that's just going to make it so it's easier for turning this after when we go to pull this to stitch this together. As you can see, when you pull it out, it'll naturally want to go where your seam allowance is. So it'll naturally sit. So now what we need to do is we need to take this and we need to press the seams open all the way along. So I'm going to go and use my iron and press my seams open right like that. And you can use a tailor's ham, a roll of fabric held inside, or a small sleeve of the ironing board and press the seams open all the way around. So I'm going to go do that and then I'll come back and we will continue on. So I've pressed those seams open as told in the pattern. You can see they're pressed open here. Now, what I do when I have to press a seam open that's in an area like this, I have an oven mitt that I put on and I carefully press it with my iron while my oven mitt is on and it's inside the bag. And that's what I do. And I'm just careful and I don't hold it for long because you can feel the heat still through the oven mitt. But I find that's what works for me when it's on smaller little bags or pouches such as this one to be able to press it open. And I do put this end over the end of my ironing board to be able to press this, but when it comes to this curved area, that's what I do. So now that this is all pressed, we're going to put this to the side, and now we need to work on the exterior body of the bag. So for this step, the next step, we're going to attach our magnetic snaps. So we need to grab our pieces that will have the magnetic snaps on them. And I'm just going to find the ones that have the markings. There we go. So you need to make the markings on your pattern pieces B and C. So this is B and C. And the markings are on your pattern pieces for where your magnetic snaps will go. So you'll want to refer to your pattern pieces for that. We will grab out our magnetic snaps. and all our tools that we need to put our magnetic snaps onto our bag. There we go. So I like to use a piece of scrap interfacing on the back of my snaps as well. And this just adds some extra stability behind them. So you will take your magnetic snap and you will trace the prongs, the slits for the prongs. So I do this on my scrap interfacing. And then on your pattern piece where you've marked, so right there on my flap is where I've marked for the magnetic snap. I'm going to line up this center hole on the, I don't know if you can see that. It might have been better if I held it like that. So this center hole on the washer, I'm going to line it up with that dot that I made. Trace the prongs. I'm going to do the same thing on this piece, which is piece B. And then I will carefully use my seam ripper to cut the holes. Now I have a tip so that when you're ripping, you don't accidentally rip all the way up. What you do is you take your pin and you place it right at the top of the line for the prong, which mine are kind of crooked here, so I'm just going to pivot this and make it so it's more straight. Just a second. There we go. Just going to make it so it's straight. So you place your pin at the top of the line that you made for the prong, and then you go across and come out at the other line right at the top. So right at those top of those prong markings. So you can see where my pin comes in and out right at the top of those prong markings. Then when I go to seam rip, my needle, as you can see, acts like a stopper and I can't rip past that. And that just protects it so that I don't accidentally go too far. I'll flip this over. I'll add some fray stop. Oh, this is really runny. Repeat that for the flap. So pin in right at the top and out right at the top of those prong lines. And this is really helpful when you're using something like a vinyl or a cork, something where you're going to feel like you're going to push a little bit harder to cut through. This comes out really quick. Oof. So if you're using the quilting cotton or anything that'll fray, you'll want to use a bit of that fray stop. Also going to cut the holes for the slits on my hardware, on my interfacing. Now what we need to do is take our, and I just want to make sure we're putting the right piece on the flap. So we're going to insert the female snap on the flap. Oh wait. Oh no, female goes on the exterior front pocket. So your female goes on the exterior front pocket, and that's the one with the little innie piece. So you insert it so that the prongs go through the holes. Put your scrap piece of interfacing, then your washer. Now, if you're using a magnetic snap that is different from this, you'll want to follow the manufacturer's instructions. I always say follow the manufacturer's instructions just because this is how I do it. It may not be how it should be done. Then you bend your prongs. I like to bend mine in because it hugs the fabric. This is just a personal preference. You can push them out, but I like to bend mine in so they hug the fabric. And this is just a personal preference because I had issues in the past where I was bending them out, and then I found that my magnetic snaps or other hardware would somehow come out. So I find when I have it now where it hugs the fabric, they stay in and they don't come out. So now I'm putting the male piece, the male half of the magnetic snap, onto my flap. And then I'm going to use some tape And for this step, you can use some interfacing if you want over top of this. Just be careful when you're ironing the interfacing that you do not touch that magnetic snap because you can demagnetize it. But I'm just using some of this duct tape, and I just buy this at the dollar store. And I go with white because you won't see it through the fabric. And that just protects the prongs over time so it doesn't rub through on the fabric that's going to be against it. So there's your magnetic snaps installed. Just like that. So you got the right side and the wrong side. Now they're attached. So again, you'll want to follow your manufacturer's instructions for adding your magnetic snaps, because you may have one that you use your rivet press with. You may have something totally different. So do use your manufacturer's instructions for attaching these. So those are done. We can put this to the side for now, the flap piece to the side. Now we need to grab our 2 front exterior pocket pieces, and that looks like these. And we need to place them so they go right sides together. So the one with my magnetic snap right now is on my table. It's facing right sides up. I'm going to place the other piece so it is right sides down so they're pretty sides touching. Pin it together along the top edge. And then we're going to sew this top edge using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And I just need to move this over a little bit because my camera is in the way. There we go. So sew this using the seam allowance given in the pattern, and make sure you're using a stitch length that you like to use when you're stitching your bag together. And I think I just used the wrong seam allowance, so I was busy focusing on the wrong thing. So I'm just going to take this apart and restart. Okay. So again, seam allowance. Good thing I caught that. Trim your threads. Now we need to press this. I like to press this seam open, and I'm just finger pressing it right now. Press this seam open. This is what I do to help get a nice crisp press at the top. So I press that seam open. Then I'm going to clip the bottom edges so they are together. And right now it's wrong sides together. And then I will take my iron and I will press this along the top edge here that we just sewed. Being careful not to hit that snap. So you just press here, keep it on the edge, don't go near your snap. So I'm going to go press that. When I'm done pressing, we'll top stitch this and we'll continue adding it to our bag. All right, so now we need to top stitch, and just like we did with the lining slip pocket, we're going to stitch 2 rows of stitching here at the top of the pocket piece. So use your favorite stitch length for top stitching. 2 rows of stitching. Stitch length back to my length for stitching my bag just before I forget. Trimming all my threads. I was trying to trim a thread. That's part of the fabric. I can't help but laugh at myself. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but there's a line right here on the fabric, right there. And I thought it was a thread and I was trying to pick it off, but it's just in the fabric. It's a marking and it's the leaf. All right, so we can remove our bottom clips. So that's how it all looks when it's all top stitched. Now we need to take our exterior front center, and we need to place it so it is right sides up, and we're going to place our pocket on it right sides up. So right now, what I mean by right sides up is this is pretty sides up, and your pocket piece with the snap will be up. You'll be seeing the snap. And we're going to line up the bottom edges and the side edges, pin it together. Pin at the top corners here, pin down the sides, and then what we need to do is baste the side edge, the bottom, and down the other side. And what I like to do to prevent shifting of my fabric when I'm doing this is I like to start in the middle, go across the bottom and up the other side, start in the middle, across the bottom and up the other side. And what that does is that just helps prevent shifting. Now for a basting stitch, you can put your stitch length at a longer stitch length. So the same length you use for top stitching, you can use. Because a basting stitch is just holding the fabrics temporarily together until we get it sewn onto the rest of the bag. And it doesn't matter if your stitches are absolutely perfect here. So, you know, if they're a little bit wonky, as long as they're within your seam allowance, no one will ever know. And my magnetic snap was just gripping onto the bed of my machine. Return your stitch length, trim your threads. And at the same time, I will give my panel a little haircut because some of the threads from the material kind of start fraying a bit. So I like to give it a little haircut just so that those don't peekaboo later on me. All right, so there it is. That's how it looks so far. Your pocket, your magnetic snap is what we're looking at. Now what we need to do is we need to take one front body side and place it so it is on the side here, right sides down. So your one with the pocket, so your front exterior pocket piece right now is right sides up. We're going to place the front side, body side, right sides down, lining up those long straight edges and pin it together. So pin it at the top and the bottom. And I'm going to pin the second side as well, and sew that one too. So second one will go right sides down. So they're going to be pretty sides touching right now. So it's all pinned. And now we're going to sew this with the seam allowance given in the pattern. And don't forget to turn your stitch length, if you haven't already, back to the stitch length you use for stitching your bag together. And another tip, if you're concerned about keeping your seam allowance straight, you have a hard time, say, following it on your machine, what you can do is draw your seam allowances on your pattern pieces on the wrong side, and when you're stitching, you just stitch directly on top of those drawn lines. And that'll help keep your seam allowance nice and straight, and you don't have to try and follow any lines on your machine. Trim all your threads. So right now we have a piece that looks like this. We see all the wrong sides. We need to open the seam allowances and press them away from the pocket. So we're pressing them towards the side piece we've just added. So you're pressing them this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my iron and I'm going to press this. Now, I'm not going to press on the right side because I used this Moon Glow vinyl. I'm going to press it on the wrong side. Now, another thing you can do is you can use double-sided sticky tape here to help hold your seams down. And once I'm done pressing, I'll see how that is. And if I'm finding that they're still sort of popping up and it's not staying pressed nice and flat, I might use some double-sided sticky tape here to help hold the seam down. You can also use a seam roller or a seam pounder, just like that, to help press those seams down. It'll also help reduce the bulk too, because when you use your seam pounder like I just did, that helps flatten the fabrics and it kind of squishes them together. So you can do whatever you need to do in order to get that seam pressed open, but I'm going to go to my iron and press this open, and then we'll come back and continue on. All right, so now we can top stitch these seams. So we're going to top stitch on top of the body side. So change your stitch length to the length you like to use for top stitching. And then when we're top stitching, what we're doing is helping hold those seams pressed towards the side as well. So we're going to trim all our threads. Missed this one. There we go. Now, if you really want, you can do a second row of stitching to match the 2 rows of stitching that are at the top of your pocket here. I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave that for now. I'm going to put this together with this. Now, if you're making the mama size bag, there is a zipper pocket that you're going to be adding. So you will follow the instructions for adding your zipper pocket to the exterior. And there's also a removable case, but we're not making the mama size, we're making the miss size. So we're going to continue on. And the next thing that we need to do is we need to make our darts on our pattern piece here, on our exterior. So the exact same way we did the darts for the lining, we're going to do the darts for the exterior. Ow. Don't poke yourself. And the first thing I want to do too is, you know what, I'm going to take this and measure it, and this is how I'm going to see if everything was accurate, and my pattern pieces do match up, so that's good. Back to what I was doing, start with this one, is lining up those seams, or those lines that we made with our dart, and I use a pin. Oh, it's good. And again, same thing, make sure the corner, the top corner of your dart is right where the fold is at the top. Use some clips to hold it in place. This one I'm going to have to retrace because you can see it very faintly through the fusible fleece. And one last one. And now we're going to sew those darts exactly as we did with the lining, and then we'll trim them as well. And you won't do this on the mama if you're making the mama side until after you've done all the steps of the pockets. This is just at the very end, but nothing is being added to the miss size. So that is why we can go ahead and stitch them. Now I just want to see if we're pressing these to a different, the same thing we did on the darts. Yeah, so we are pressing these as well. Now I used this Moon Glow vinyl for mine, so I can't press them. So when I'm sewing my exterior of my bag, I will have to clip them so that they go in place and hold there. So as I'm clipping my bag together, I'll clip them so that they go one way and the other goes the other way so that they nest. So I'm going to put, now that these are done, I'm going to put these off to the side for now. We're going to keep going, and the next thing we're going to work on is our zipper. So we need to grab our zipper and our zipper pull. Now, if your pull is already attached, that's okay. Mine's not, because I wanted to show you how to add your zipper pull. So I have my zipper jig here. I'm going to take my zipper pull, and with the flat end of the zipper pull, I'm going to slide that down into my zipper jig so it holds it in place. I'm going to grab my zipper, or take my zipper, open it up a little bit, and I'm going to place my zipper tape into the zipper pull evenly so they go in evenly. And I'm placing them, as you can see, on an angle, and then pull it down. And as you can see, it is straight and flat, and that means that my zipper pull is on nicely. It's going to be flat and even. There's not going to be any bubbles or any ripples anywhere. And that's how easy it is to put a pull on using that zipper jig. Now we need to grab our zipper tabs, or our zipper ends, and again, in the pattern, before you attach your zipper pull, trim your zipper to the length given in the pattern for the size of the bag you're making. So if you're making the miss, there's one length you need to trim it to. If you're making the mama, there's a different length for the mama. So there is a note: if you are using a longer zipper or zipper by the yard, cut to the length of zipper with no metal stops at the exact required length. Make sure the tails on the open ends are even, and then 1/4 inch from the end, sew across the zipper tapes to keep them together. So we're going to do that. And what you're doing is you're just creating a zipper stop at the end here. So what happens is that keeps the zipper from coming off. So I'm going to trim that. Now it's gone. Now what we need to do, so I've realized I made a small error. I grabbed a number 5 zipper instead of a number 3, and that's why I paused the camera, because I've caught that error. So we are not using a number 5. I could make it work for this tutorial, and I do like the number 5 zippers when I'm sewing, which is why I grabbed it. But it's not a number 5, it is a number 3 that you need. So once you have the number 3 zipper with your pull attached and your end sewn, just like given in the instructions, we can continue on. So normally what I would have done is cut that out and I would have removed it, but I wanted you to see how to install that zipper pull. So it is the same thing. You can use this zipper jig for a number 3, which is what I did, and you want to cut the stops off your number 3 zipper like I did. So I'll show you what I cut off. So by zipper stops, I mean these metal zipper ends on the end here. You want to make sure you cut those off, that's not going to be in your seams or anywhere, so that you don't have them. So now we can continue on. I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to cause any confusion if I did, but we have our number 3 zipper all prepared. So now what we need to do is attach our zipper ends. So what you're going to do is place your zipper ND lining right side up, just like this. So this is my lining piece, and you're going to place the zipper right sides up on top of it. Pin it together so you're lining up those short raw edges. everything will line up. And I'm just going to base stitch across this to hold it in place. So now my lining is held in place. And now I'm going to place my exterior right sides down on top of the zipper. So we're creating a little zipper sandwich. And then I'm going to sew across this using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Now I'm going to start with my needle down, and the reason for this is so that nothing shifts on me. And I usually start somewhere in the center, but I started on the edge here. That's okay. And the reason why I will start in the center sometimes is to prevent any shifting at all. If you start in the center and go towards the end, then backstitch towards the other end, I just sometimes find that nothing shifts on me. So I'm going to repeat that whole process with the second side, base stitching this together. And again, remember your basting stitch is a smaller seam allowance than your regular seam allowance. My exterior goes right sides together. Lining up those short raw edges. Then we're going to press these fabrics away from each other. So they are now wrong sides together, and I could just finger press this. I don't need to pause the camera and go to my iron. Add a little clip on the end. Oops. Finger press. And now we're going to top stitch these. Both sides. And you're stitching on top of the zipper end right now. Trim all your threads. And that's how it will look with your zipper ends attached to your zipper. Now we need to fold our zipper in half, and we need to mark the center marking of our zipper tabs, or of our zipper, sorry. So fold it in half, and I'm lining up where the seam is, where the zipper ends were stitched onto the zipper. So lining up those seams, we'll get the center of our zipper. And I use clips to hold it together. And then I'm just going to fold it in half. And I'm finger pressing it. And within my seam allowance, I'm going to make a little mark. And I am using a pencil. I just mark within my seam allowance, not any further, so that I don't have any issues later. And this way here, when I'm pressing with my iron, these won't erase on me and I won't have to worry about remaking the marks again. So I've made that center mark on my zipper. So now what we need to do is we need to grab one of our flap pieces, and I just want to see what we're starting with. We're starting with our exterior front piece. So take your exterior front and place it right sides up. And this is the one that will have the flap with the magnetic snaps. And your magnetic snap, depending on the size of bag you're making, you may have 2 magnetic snaps or 1. So placing this right sides up, so the curve is at the top here, we're going to place the zipper on top, right sides down. So right now the zipper is wrong sides up. We'll line up that center mark. Add some clips. And then you're going to line up the seam where your zipper and your zipper end are with the mark on the side here that you made on your flap. That mark will be another marking that you're lining up, and then you're going to pin the rest of the way from that mark all the way around. Now the zipper may feel tight, and that's what you want. You want it to be a tighter zipper because you don't want to have wavy zippers after we sew it all together. Another thing we're going to do is switch to a zipper foot so we can stitch this. Now your zipper end may be slightly longer than your flat piece, and that's okay. It does say that in the pattern that that's okay. Don't panic if it is. Ooh, that's on there good. All right, so switch to a zipper foot because you will need it for these next few steps. And now we're going to sew this using the seam allowance given in the pattern, and we're going to sew all the way around the curve, carefully going around the curve. And you can use a longer stitch length here because this is a basting stitch. We're just basting it on to the pattern, to the flat piece. We're not using our full seam allowance, not yet. And when I'm approaching the zipper, I'm going to slide it out of the way. So needle down, slide my zipper out of the way. And remember what I said about curves, you can do that here as well with your curves. You can also use some double-sided sticky tape to help hold this in place. There it is. It's attached, snipping my threads. All right. So now we have the exterior attached to the zipper, and it's just basted in place. So that's how it looks so far. Now we need to take, we need to take our lining piece and place it right sides together with the flap piece. So right now, when we have it on our table, we're looking at the right side of our flap and the wrong side of our zipper. The lining is going to go wrong sides, or right sides together. We're going to be looking at the wrong side of the lining right now. Line up all your markings. Get all those markings lined up. Now, when we're sewing this one, it's going to be a little bit tricky. When we get to where that zipper pull is, we'll have to reach inside through this opening here and slide the zipper pull out of the way. Now, if you find it easier to stitch this zipper with it open all the way until you get to where that zipper pull is and then you have to slide it out of the way, you can definitely do that. And when I stitch this, I'm going to stitch with my lining against the bed of my machine. No real reason. I don't know why I do that. I just do. All right. So now we're going to sew all the way around this flap, not the top straight edge, just the curved edge, using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And as you can see, I'm not going too fast. I'm just taking my time. Now, there's that zipper pull. I'm going to zip it out of the way. So needle is down, presser foot up, reaching in. Why can't I find it? Oh, it's right there. I was going on the underside of it. Reaching in, zipping it out of the way. There we go. So I zipped it out of the way, presser foot back down, and continue stitching along. Trim your threads. You can see how it looks when you've stitched it. So now we're going to turn it so it is right sides out. And I'm just finger pressing so that I don't have to pause the camera again. There we go. Now you can top stitch this if you want. It is optional. I am going to top stitch it, and I like top stitching with my regular foot. I'm going to switch back to my regular foot for now. We're going to top stitch this using your favorite top stitch length. And carefully go around the curve. All the way around. There we go. And that's how that looks so far with the flap attached and it top stitched. So now we need to place the exterior front flap, the remaining one, right sides up. We're going to place our zipper, the same thing, right sides down, lining up those center marks. Same thing we did previously. I'm also going to change my presser foot back to my zipper foot. Pin it in place. So I'm lining up all the markings. I always do that first. Pinning it the rest of the way around. same thing we did previously. Baste stitch this in place. And I try to not remove my clips until my presser foot touches them or is almost at them. But I'm trying to also hold the fabric. And I was able to just scooch right by that zipper pull. And now we're going to repeat the same thing with our lining. So now, right now, what we're looking at is the lining side of our flap. You're going to place the remaining lining flap right sides down on top. So this is how it looks. You're seeing your zipper with the exterior that you just attached on the back, the wrong side of your zipper, and then the right side of your lining. And see my mark up here? That's where I'm lining up this curved edge of my lining flap that's remaining. So just like this. So you see my flap? It's going over top, and I'm lining it up with this top raw edge, curved edge of that flap, lining up those center marks. So we're creating another zipper sandwich, and our linings are going to be right sides together right now. And it might feel like you're pulling on the fabrics a little bit, and you kind of are in a way, because there is some bulk underneath from all the pieces that are already attached. And we'll do the same thing when we get to that zipper. We'll go in through the straight open edge, and we will zip it out of the way. Oops. There we go. So now we're going to stitch this around the edge, and you can see my exterior I just stitched and my lining. We're going to sew all the way around using that seam allowance given in the pattern. And there's that zipper pull, so I gotta zip it out of the way. A little bit hard. I have a hard time grabbing it because it's so small, the zipper pull. That's another reason why I like using number 5s. You can also use a stiletto or an awl here to help hold your fabrics, and again, double-sided sticky tape will do the trick. Oh, I don't know what I was doing there. So there it is. It's all stitched. Now we're going to turn this so it is right sides out. And right now we're looking at the wrong sides of our lining. I'm just going to finger press this. And I'm going to turn it now so we get our exterior sides out. Now we're going to top stitch this, and this might be a little bit tricky, but we can do it. And I'm going to show you how. Top stitching is optional. If you don't want to, you don't have to. So what you're going to do is I turn it so that the side that I already top stitched is under like that. Oops, wrong side. So I turn it, push it under like that. So you're going to have the side I stitched, and I just push it into itself just like that, just to get it out of my way. Then I place this inside or under my presser foot just like that, and I start top stitching. It's a lot easier when you have a free arm on your machine, but this is how I do that with this. And just being careful to not catch anything else underneath the needle and the presser foot. So I'm making sure my fabrics stay out of the way. And see how I'm just moving the fabrics with my hands. And then this fabric that I've already stitched is going up behind my presser foot. And every once in a while I stop to reposition fabric and make sure nothing is under the presser foot that shouldn't be. And that's it, we did it. Went all the way around. Threads everywhere. So we did it. So see, we stitched that last one. We can zip this closed. No wavy zipper. We have this perfect zipper attached. Now what we need to do is, hang on, match all 4 raw edges of the flap. So what I'm going to do, something that's not in the pattern before we move on, is I want to stitch these edges of the flap. Oh, it is in the pattern, sorry. We're basting across this, sorry. We're basting across this, and what you want to do is you want to line up where the seams are here on the sides for your zipper ends. So line up those seams there at the top. Line up your center markings as well at the top. And we're going to baste this together. And you can use a longer stitch length for basting. And what this is doing is it's just holding the flap layers all together so that when we attach it to the bag, you don't have any that shift under and you see raw edges poking out. Nothing will shift on you. And I'm just trimming any threads that have frayed. So giving my flap a little haircut. I missed one. Now I need to remark the center, so I'm just going to find where those center marks are. And within my seam allowance, mark them. Oops, oops, made that worse. There we go. So I've marked my center markings, I've remarked them. We have our flap, which acts as a cute little pocket after. So now we need to grab our back body. So that will be this piece. So the piece that we didn't attach the front center pocket. And we're going to place the flap so it is right sides down against the right side of the exterior back. So place your exterior back right sides up. And when I say right sides down, I mean the front of the flap. So the flap part without the magnetic snap will go right sides together with your back body. So what you're seeing right now with your flap is you're seeing your magnetic snaps. You want to make sure the magnetic snaps are looking at you. Pin it together at the top. So once you have it centered, we can baste this in place using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And there is a second row of stitching that you can use. I'm not going to use it, but you can do the second row of basting stitches if you want. Again, I'm not going to. I'm just going to do my regular once over stitch length. Just like that. And so the reason why you have it like that is so that when you flip this over, imagine this is the front of the bag, the magnetic snap will line up with your magnetic snap on your pattern pieces. Now what we need to do is take our two exterior pieces and place them right sides together. And I couldn't pin or press my darts, I forgot the word, out of the way, but I do have an idea. What I can do is baste them so that they stay in place within the seam allowance. And that'll help hold them in place. And then I will baste the other ones so they go towards the center. Oops. And now we're going to place these so they are right sides together. Again, lining up your center marks and your seams for your, oh no, I don't have a center mark here. Your seams for your darts. I'm going to just pause the camera and I'm going to make my center mark here. I made it up here. I don't know why I did that. Oh, I must have thought that that's where the magnetic snap was going. I don't have the center mark here, but I'm going to go off camera and make my center mark. I need to use my ruler to do that. And then I'll come back and we will pin these two together and continue on. All right, so that center mark is made. Now we're ready to continue with pinning our exteriors together. So we're going to line up that center mark, just like we did when we pinned our linings together. You're going to pin the seams of your darts together so that they nest. And that's why we've got one seam going one way and one the other. So one to the left and one to the right. Oops. Pin the top corners. And now we're going to sew this using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Make sure your stitch length is at the length you like to use for stitching your bag together. And remember these curves, as I was mentioning previously, where if you want to make sure you get a nice curve, you can do it one stitch at a time, as I mentioned previously. Oops, I almost throw those in the garbage. So now we need to press these seams open, and I've used a vinyl, so I can't really press them open. I could use some double-sided sticky tape, but I'm just going to finger press it. And what I will do at the top is the same thing I did with holding the darts. I will baste them open at the top. So I'll baste them open at the top. And even with quilting cotton, you could do this if you want. Helps hold them open up there. You want them opened especially at the top so that it reduces bulk later. Where's those threads? There it is. And trim all your threads. There you go. That's how it's looking so far. So we have our flap tucked inside. So now we're going to make the shoulder strap tabs. And I'm actually going to be doing these a little bit differently than what's in the pattern, but if you want to sew them like they are instructed in the pattern, I will just quickly show you. I'm not going to sew it, but I'm just going to quickly show you. So you have a piece that looks like this. You're going to fold the strap tab pieces so that they are right sides together, just like this. So fold it directly in half, just like this. You'll pin that together. And then you'll sew this raw edge here using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Now, once you have that raw edge sewn, what you need to do is take this tube and turn it right sides out. So you'll have a piece that will look something like this when you get it turned right sides out. You'll have one edge that was sewn, so it'll have two edges like this, and then you'll have the nice folded edge on this side. So you'll take that and you'll press it, centering the seam line on the tab. So you don't want the center seam or the seam, you know, where you sewed and you turned it right side out. You want to put that so it's in the center of the tab. So you'll put the seam in the center of your tab, and then you'll press it. And then what you'll do is you'll top stitch the two long edges on the side. So you'll top stitch that. And then once that's top stitch, then we'll continue on with adding our hardware. But that's not how I'm doing mine. What I'm doing is I have one of these strap tabs cut. I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to cut this in half. Now I could take this to my iron or to my rotary cutter or my cutting mat and with my rotary cutter cut this, but to save some time, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to just go off camera and quickly draw my lines where the half mark is. So you need to draw your line down the center once they're cut in half. And I just find this is a little bit easier. We don't have to turn them right sides out. We don't have to fiddle with it. This is just easier for my hands, which is why I'm doing this. So you'll have pieces that look like this. So you took one of those strap tabs, you cut it in half, and then from that half piece, you'll draw a line down the entire length of the strap tab. Then we're going to take some double-sided tape. We're going to place some on each side of the line. So what I'm doing here with my tape is, see the end here? I fold it back so it sticks to itself just like that. Then I pull the piece that I folded back onto itself, and this top piece here has nothing on it, and that acts like a little tab, making it easier for me to pull my double-sided tape up after, because there's no tape on the end. So pull the backing off of the double side. Oh, that just came right off altogether. I didn't stick it down, I guess. So you're going to pull your paper backing off. Pull the paper backing off, and then you're going to take the long raw edge and fold it in to meet at that center line. Repeat that for the other side. my nails. Fold it right in to meet the center line. So it'll look just like that. So your center line where your two raw edges met are in the center there, and then you have these nice folded edges on the other side. So we'll repeat that for the second piece. And again, I just prefer this method. I find it's easier, it's faster, way easier, because sometimes turning these small little tubes, I find get really hard on my fingers and my hands, so I really prefer to do whatever is going to be easier and also faster. So again, folding those long raw edges in to meet in the center. So just like the original pattern, we're having those raw edges in the center, but if you did it the way that it was in the pattern, those would be folded in because of the way you sewed it. So there's the raw edges. Now we're going to top stitch this. And again, remember, I'm making mine so they finish, and I know I don't normally give sizes, but I'm giving it here, so that they finish 3/4 of an inch. And the reason for that is preference, but also with a bag this size, you don't really need it to be the 1 inch. You can still make it the 1 inch wide if you want. You don't need it to be bigger. You don't need 2 inches or 1.5 inches. The 3/4 inch wide is enough. So that's why I've chosen to do that. So now that they're top stitched, we need to grab our hardware. So you'll see they're top stitched on both sides. So now we're going to feed the strap tab through the hardware, and my hardware has that seam here. I like to fold it through that so you don't see it. So it's in between the folds, never to be seen. Now I'm going to baste the end together. And see how easy that was? Easy peasy. Quick and easy, no turning. Everything is done just like that, and we have our strap tabs. Now we need to attach the strap tabs to our bag. So take your bag, and you're going to center one of the strap tabs over the side seam here. So here's my side seam where the two exteriors join, and we're going to center a strap tab over that side seam. Now I just want to make sure we're lining up raw edges. So you're lining up the raw edges and you're basting it in place. So there's one. Oops. And we'll attach the second one. Return your stitch length, because I did use a longer stitch length there. Trim your threads. And that's how it looks when you've got it attached. So it's centered on your seam. Now we're going to put the bag all together. So with the exterior bag wrong sides out, so that's how it is now, you'll turn your lining so it is right sides out. We're going to put the lining inside of the exterior, so just like this. Line up your side seams. Add a clip. We'll line up our center markings too, and then we'll add a clip. Pin it all the way around. Lining up those top raw edges. Oops. Make sure your flap is pushed down inside the bag. And now we're going to stitch all the way around the bag using the seam allowance given in the pattern. So just find somewhere to start and just stitch. Remember to make sure that your hardware is not pushed up or anything. You don't want to hit that hardware when you're coming around to it. I've done it before. Even if it sort of shifts up, it can still get underneath your presser foot somehow. All right, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back where my strap anchors are, and I'm going to stitch back over that area just for some extra strength there. There we go. Now we need to pull this through the opening in our lining. And what I'm going to do is pull out the flap first, because that'll make it a little bit easier for me. Getting out that bit of that bulk. I'm going to pull this. There we go. Push out your bag. This is where you get to see how beautiful your seams all line up. Such a cute little bag. Now I have some threads here that I can go back and find and pull through. Threads that are doing the peekaboo on me. So I always check to see, and then I pull them back through the layers. Hard to see here where it is. It's between. I want it to break if I pull it. I might have to. Yeah, that just pulled through. It's a loose one. All right. So now we're going to push our lining inside our bag, and we're going to top stitch our bag. Now, I could take this to my iron and press it, but I have the vinyl at the top, and I could use a Teflon sheet, but I prefer to just do this. So get this inside the bag, go up and in with my turning tool and push out the seam. There we go. Best I can. And then I will just roll it with my fingers. And I'm going to use some clips here to help hold everything in place. Now, I don't have a free arm on my machine, so I will show you what I do because I don't have the free arm. And this spot here, I'm just going to have to finger press. Check that as I'm sewing it to make sure that it is still pressed nicely when I'm top stitching. So because I don't have a free arm, excuse me, what I do is take my bag and turn it so the lining is right sides out, just like that. Get it all pushed nice and flat, and there you go, I have my lining out. So now what I'm going to do is insert this in the bed of my machine, or on the bed of my machine, and I usually start on a seam or close to a side seam or near the back but on a side seam, just so that it's at the back. And then I'm just going to start stitching all the way around. Now, if you have a free arm, you don't need to stitch it this way. You can stitch it with the bag right sides out and then go around. This is because I don't have a free arm on my machine. Also, if you're finding that your machine is struggling going over the bulk where the strap tabs are, you can use your seam pounder here and hammer the seams so that it flattens them for you. I'm sure with the amount of seams that I have to hammer, my neighbors probably think I'm rebuilding my house. All right, I'm coming back to where I started. Whoops. Make sure that hardware isn't doing what mine just did. And I just go carefully over that bulk. I'm always worried about skip stitches. And I like to lessen my stitch length a bit to do my back stitching. I'm going to pull on my thread tails through to the back if I can, and then I'm going to actually just tie a little knot. I might not be able to because I back stitched so well. Oh, there we go. No, that's not the one. It's this one. There we go. There we go. So now I just pulled them all through to the back. I'm just going to tie a knot just to tie it off. You don't have to do this. This is just a personal preference. You can also do this if you don't want to do back stitching. Cut the threads. Turn the bag back, right sides out. We still have that opening in the bottom, so you can fix your bag. Look at how pretty and cute it is. And when you flip this over, it's so cute. It's so little. This would be a great bag for if you're going out on a day trip or if you're traveling somewhere and you just want to have your necessities with you. It's perfect for that. So now we need to pull the lining out and close that opening. So we're just turning that opening under. And because of the way we stitched originally, that lining turns under nicely for us. We don't have to fight with it, nothing. You can take this to your iron if you want and press it. I'm not going to, it's good. You can stitch this by hand if you want. I never do, just a personal preference. I just stitch with the machine. I figure once items are inside of the bag, you're not going to see this. You can use a thread that matches the lining of your bag. That'll help hide the stitches a little bit more. All right, tuck this back into your bag. Push the darts into the lining darts into your exterior darts. Clip the bag closed. There it is for now. So now we need to make our strap. And again, for this, I have it finishing at 3/4 inch wide. So you will take your piece and you will take the 3/4 inch and you will multiply it by 4, and that's your width, and you cut it by the length. Now I've cut 2 pieces because I cut it the width of my fabric, and then I needed some extra for my to make the length of my strap. So I'm still going to show you how you do that. So as per the instructions, take one piece, lay it right sides up. So I'm going to show you this way. Lay it right sides up like this. Take your second piece and you're going to place it right sides down, lining up one long straight edge with one short edge and the other straight edge with the long straight edge with another short edge. Clip it in place. And you're going to sew from corner here, from this corner down to this bottom corner. So the top corner down to the bottom corner. So sew straight across, straight down to that corner. So it'll look like that. So I went from top corner here to the bottom corner. We'll cut away the excess. Throw it out. And then you have a piece like this. And if you cut your piece into more pieces, keep sewing them together and then trim your strap to the length you need. So now I need to go fuse my interfacing. So I'm going to go do that and then I'll come back and we will continue with making our strap. All right, so I've got my interfacing attached to my strap, and while I was there, I pressed my strap the way we need to fold it, but I'll still show you how we are folding it. I just didn't want to have to pause the camera again and get up and press again. So your piece is going to look like this no matter what width it is cut. You're going to fold the long edges so they are together all the way the entire length of the strap, fold them together, wrong sides touching, and then press. You will then open it up and press the long raw edges in to meet in the center. So you'll take these and fold them in to meet in the center so it'll look like this. Now, a little tip. I don't fold it so the centers touch, because when you go to fold it, that ends up creating a little bit of a bulk in this fold here. What I do is I fold it so they're just a little bit away from the center crease, just a slight little bit, just so that they're not touching. And you'll see here mine aren't touching. Hang on, I'm not really holding it right. Mine aren't touching, there's a slight gap there. And then when I fold them together, that gives the room for the pieces to lie flat beside each other and not bulk up in this seam here. So fold them into the center, leaving a slight gap, press, then fold it again, all the way around, all the way down, and press, and you'll have a piece that'll look like this with no raw edges shown. Now, what you need to do too with this short edge, because we do have raw edges here, is there's a measurement and a mark that you'll need to make, and you'll fold it down like this, press that, then you'll fold all your pieces in again the way you had folded them already and press that. I don't finish my edges like this. I just prefer a different method, which I'm going to do. I'll link it below in the description. I do show it in a different tutorial how I do it. So I will link it below, but that's how you'll do it per the instructions. Now for mine, what I do is I fold it wrong sides together. Lining up the short raw edges. And then I sew just the one half of the strap. And the other thing I like to do when I'm pressing my strap is I like to use some steam, or not steam, spritz of water, sorry, you can use steam. And I spray my strap, and I find what that does is it helps give a nice crisp press to my strap. So now I need to trim this. Need my turning tool. Again, this is just a personal preference. You can fold it like I was showing a second ago. And I just fold them in, add a clip, and done. Just like that. So turn it so it comes right sides out, because I sewed them right sides together. Press the ends under. One side always fights me more than the other for some reason. I'm not sure why. And clip it. And now I'm going to add clips along this edge just to help keep everything straight. Now what I'm going to do is sew the entire strap, starting on one short edge and going all the way to the other. And change your stitch length to the length you like to use for your straps. Taking that one extra stitch in the corner so I don't get an angled stitch. Don't pull on your strap, just allow your machine to guide it through. And where that seam was, where I joined the two fabrics together, before I forget, I did press those opens before I fused my interfacing to it. Just going to tuck this in a bit. There we go. So I'm back on the short edge. I'm going to back stitch, and I ran out of thread. Lovely. I ran out of bobbin thread. That's okay. What I'm going to do is wind my bobbin, and I will go back and continue stitching this. So I'm going to wind my bobbin, then I'll come back and we will continue. All right, so I've wound my bobbin and I finished stitching that one side, and you may be wondering what I did. Well, because this is a busier fabric, I'm not too concerned about back stitching. So what I did was I unpicked a few stitches, and then I pulled the threads both through to the same side, and I tied them off and created a little knot. Then I trimmed those threads. Then what I did was I started back over past the stitches a little bit, back stitched over top of the previous stitches, and then just stitched down all the way to the other side. I'm not worried about back stitching here because it is a busier fabric, so you will not see that back stitching as much. But when I'm using a fabric or a material that you will see the stitching, what I will do is, if it was on this side, because I always start on this side, I would take a needle and thread the threads between this opening. So I would pull these apart here where you folded them together, so those two folds, open it up, pull with a needle the threads through, tie them off, and bury the knot between these fabrics here so you don't see it. And I would do that both times, leave long threads and pull them through. Now we need to start back where we started originally on the other side, and we're going to stitch down the same way on the other side. So you want to go in the same direction, and this helps prevent that twisting that you can often get with your strap. And I'm just going to turn off my machine because my presser foot is kind of escaping me, my foot pedal. So now what we're going to do is stitch down the other side of the strap all the way down it. So across this bottom edge here, and then back stitch. And I'm cutting my threads long so I can trim them right against. Now I have another tip. If your strap still seems a little twisted, which mine is okay, if your strap still seems a little twisted, what you can do is take it to your iron and press it flat. And I do this a lot, and I find it just helps get it nice and flat again and gets rid of all the twisting that's going on in your strap. And you can even use a bit of water or steam to help press it so that it gets rid of the twisting. So now what we need to do is the final step of our bag, which is attach our hardware and attach our strap to our bag. So we're going to fish the strap through our strap slider. So find whatever side you want to be the strap slider side and whatever side you want to be the nice side. So my strap slider has that loose bar here. So I'm going to let the loose bar drop to the bottom. I'm going to put my strap through with this middle bar at the bottom. Then I'm going to take that middle bar and push it against my strap and then fish the other end of the strap through. Then what we can do is stitch this in place. So you can stitch a little box or however you prefer to stitch it. I just like to back stitch a couple times. You can even rivet this if you want, or Chicago screw, whatever you prefer. Trim all your threads. So now we need to attach the strap to the bag. So we're going to take the strap and we're going to fish it through. I'm going through the left side and I'm going from the inside of the bag to the outside. Fish it through. Then we're going to take our slider and it's going towards the middle bar. I'm pushing it up. So then I slide my strap through. I let that middle bar fall. Or if your middle bar doesn't move, you just leave it there. You're going up over the middle bar, and it looks like this. Then you're going to take this, and coming from the outside of the bag towards the inside, you're going to fish the strap through, and it'll look like this. So one more time. we have our strap, and I like to have it so that the part that we folded over and sewed is facing up. Take your strap, looking at the top of your bag, fish it through your hardware, going from the inside of the bag to the outside of the bag. Keep pulling on your strap, bring it to your slider, slide it up your slider and back down over that middle bar, just like that. Then you will take this strap and you're going to come from the outside of the bag and put it through to the inside of the bag. So you're going through the hardware from the outside of the bag to the inside of the bag. Outside to the inside, and then pin it in place. And then we can sew this just as you did for the slider when we attached it. And I'm just going to sew back and forth 2 rows of stitching. Oops, can't get that to go up. You can sew the box, you could sew a box with an X. This is just my personal preference. You can rivet this, trim all your threads. Sometimes when I'm done, I go back and I look and I find threads. Now, before you sew that end of the strap on, you may want to check and make sure it's not twisted. So you may just want to put a clip there and then check and make sure your strap is not twisted so that you don't get it all attached and then it's all twisted. Always check before you sew so that you know that it is on good. And there it is. Your Manhattan bag is complete. It has this cute little flap, and if you've made the Mama Manhattan, you will have an exterior zipper pocket and you will have a removable pocket inside, but you have this pocket on the front. Let's see if my phone will fit in it. And I have a pretty big phone, and it does, which is awesome. And then you can snap the flap back over, just like that. Nice size bag, will hold anything you need just for your outing. If you're going on a quick outing, you can even put your phone in that pocket so that all you got to do is lift up the flap. You can get access to your phone quickly or put it in this pocket inside if you want. Just depends on what you want to use this bag for, but this would be great for if you're going on an outing or on a trip and you just want something small to carry just the essentials with you, or if you like smaller bags as well. It's really cute. I really like it, and I like the shape too, and I like this front design as well. So again, this is the Manhattan bag by Emmaline Bags. I do hope you enjoyed sewing along with me and maybe picked up a few tips and tricks along the way. Thank you for sewing with me. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye.